Greetings, everyone. My name is Chris Kamalski, and I'm your lecturer for Leadership Studies 1 CLC version. Today's TUT, which is TUT number 3 at 4 p.m. or 1600 for October the 1st, 2014, is entitled, How Do You Manage a Day Spa? We are going to be looking today at the leadership theories of style and situational leadership theory. And so we'll begin in a minute. I want to see if anyone will jump on live with us just now. So if you're watching this recording, just hold on a moment, and we'll jump into our material in just a moment. Hi, I wanted to take a moment just to welcome you by my face, even if you're watching this later, and to say that if you are watching this broadcast at any point between now and 11:59 p.m. tomorrow, Thursday, October the 2nd, you should know or should be completing or have completed already your first assessment for this course, which is a quiz, a reading reflective quiz that encompasses fill in the blank as well as short answer and one short answer essay question on Robert Coleman's text, The Master Plan of Evangelism. I'll say more about that at the end of this broadcast. I've mailed you more than enough things on it, but know that we will speak about that at the end of this broadcast. And I just want you to see my face and know that I believe in you and that I know that you are capable and that I'm looking forward to reading your material and your responses. Give me a second. I'm going to take myself off the screen and we'll jump into our material just now. Today we're going to look at the interrelation of style and situational theories of leadership. Second thing we're going to do is we're going to jump into another learning lab, which again is around the title of this whole TUT for today, and that is the idea of how do you manage a day spa. And then if anyone particularly is online live, I will not only show you how to begin this quiz if you haven't done so, I will take any questions and or open dialogue about that or any other topic if there's anyone who actually is listening live and wants to ask. I hope you are well, and let's jump into our material now. First theory of leadership we're going to look at in brief and is called style theory of leadership. And these two leadership theories are found within the different portions of the PDF notes that you have within your lesson templates. Style theory of leadership is as follows. What I want you to do for just a moment before I even read anything is I want you to take a look at that image on the far right-hand side of this slide. And basically this image describes the three major leadership styles: autocratic leadership, what we call laissez-faire leadership, and democratic leadership. And what I want you to do is just take like one moment and look at this picture, as well as a little written comments that's in the middle of the picture, each one of these pictures. And I want you to try to figure out what is distinct or what is unique about this particular leadership style. So see if you can use the picture to figure that out without cheating and reading on the left side or going ahead and looking up online. I'll give you a moment to think about that just now, and then I'll say something about that in a moment. Okay, first thing that I want to say, I'm going to answer my very own question, and that is that when I look at the autocratic leadership little diagram right there, what I see is a very directionally oriented approach or style to leadership. The leader, which is the figure in green, is very clearly telling the group of followers in purple what they should do. And not only is he not presenting them a choice, he's commanding in the sense that they need to do X. And so this leadership style is definitely one directional from the leader to the led. And it's very clear and very command oriented. Democratic leadership style, by contrast, the one on the right, is much more participative. You'll see that there are directional arrows going both ways, so that indicates the fact that there is a dialogue taking place between leader and follower. And the leader basically facilitates the conversation that has to do with choice. And the conversation is around the idea, well, what is best in this situation? Should we do X, should we do Y, or should we do Z? And the leader, although they still could make the choice and sort of make the end call, really deliberately wants the followers to not only participate, but also to contribute. And so it is a dialogue. Now, one thing I want to note about this, just right from the start, is the fact that the democratic style of leadership does not mean the democratic political party in the United States or the system of government that we know as democracy. Democratic out here has to do with a much more participative, everyone is a part of it style, which on some level has something to do with those styles of government, but this is sort of the pure form of that, so don't get confused here. Laissez-faire, by contrast, is one directional from the leader to the led, and yet we call this leadership style hands-off leadership, almost indifferent sort of leadership. And basically the leader says to the led, you can really do X or Y or whatever else you see fit. I entrust and release this process. I delegate it completely to you. And as you can probably already tell or know, that could be a really good thing or potentially a really, really bad thing. So with that in mind, what is style leadership? Style leadership is concerned with what a leader does. It's about action. It's about engagement. It's not about what sort of personality or underlying characteristics a leader has. It's not about identifying the three traits that make up the best leaders and saying we need people to do that. It's about action. It's about movement. It's about directionality. And so there's much less of a focus on leadership traits and much more of a focus on leadership behavior, given the situation at hand. Leadership behavior, given the situation at hand, basically saying, well, what does a leader need to do? How does a leader need to act, given what the needs of the situation are or the environment in front of me, what my followers need? And so I hope you see right off the start that this leadership style theory has really given birth to a lot of other leadership theory, and in particular situational and contingency leadership theories, which are explored a lot further in Unit 1, Part 2. We will look in this TUT at situational leadership in just a moment. A bit on each one of these three styles of leadership. The authoritative leader, as I said earlier, gives instruction to subordinates, demands compliance. Very clear, you do this, I expect you to do this. Typically, this necessitates an emphasis on task over performance. So it's not necessarily about the process by which someone has completed something, it's about whether you got it done. Usually this style of leadership is very closely monitored, almost obnoxiously so. A democratic leader, in contrast, involves subordinates, which is not even a good word for followers, but probably involves participants in the decision-making process, allowing them to make their own judgments while taking initiative. Laissez-faire, or hands-off leadership, by contrast, which, by the way, that term comes from an economic term that the French came up with that talks about being hands-off. It has to do with the free market economy and how you take away regulations to allow businesses to compete with each other in a capitalist market and capitalistic market. And but applied to leadership, this particular leadership style says that there's not really any interest, particularly relationally, in this business. Therefore, they're free to do as they please. A little bit more on each one of these three styles. I hope you see by now that an authoritative leader has a very clear division between himself or herself as the leader and their followers. These decisions are often made independently without the consultation of followers. And what I want you to see, and I want you to see this both with all these styles, but really with all leadership theory that we look at in general, is this is not necessarily or inherently a bad thing. I know, particularly for those of you that are younger, that there's kind of a growing tendency to rebel against authority and to distrust those that are placed above us. And I want to say this by way of example to you to show that that may or may not be always the best approach. If you and I were suddenly to realize that we were in a fire and we were in the 4th floor of a multiple-story building, both of us would quickly look to each other and to whoever else we were with and immediately expect somebody to take authority, to take control of the situation, and only to put out the fire, hopefully, but also to get everybody out to safety, more importantly, and down the stairs, multiple flights of stairs. And so when you're in an emergency situation, as an example, authoritative leaders are not only often needed, they're preferred. And even the most democratic of people will say, I need somebody to be in charge here and help me figure out what to do. And so that's just a small example of how each one of these styles can be appropriate given the situation at hand, but they also can all be abused, and they have a negative side to them as well. A democratic leader is highly participative, as I've already said multiple times, often very engaging. This generally is the most effective of leadership styles for a number of reasons. One of the major ones being that the contributions from the followers to the situation at hand are generally at a much higher quality level. They're much more thought out, they're much more planned, they're much more reasoned. And that really more or less has to do with their opinion being truly valued, that they feel like they're a part of the group, they're participating, and so they want to engage. Laissez-faire leaders, by contrast, thirdly, delegative style, hands-off leadership style. Now, I said earlier that this could either be a positive or a negative thing. It can be negative in the sense that this style often feels indifferent at times, or almost like I've released any control at all. Little to no guidance could be offered. However, if you are a highly skilled team of startup people who have initiative and training and a high level of skill technique, you often don't want a micromanager. You want the freedom and the space to create at your own pace and in your own way. And so again, there are positive times where this form of leadership could be utilized. What I'd like you to do for the next few minutes, and I'm going to mute myself and actually give a few minutes of time before I come back on, which will be, I don't know, 3 to 4 minutes or so, is I want you to make a list of authoritative, democratic, and laissez-faire leaders, at least one individual, government, organization, business, etc., for each leadership style. The more specific you can get, the more actual you can get, like you know these people, the more helpful this exercise will be, because you're going to be able to speak with authority about them. So basically, make this list. And then what I want you to do is I want you to determine what differences exist between the leaders of each one of these styles. Now, I've said a few things along those lines already in general. Now I want you to get more specific. So basically, hone in on this question. What actions distinguish a leader of this particular style? And I want you to list just a couple, given the short amount of time you have. And then sort of lastly, what I'm interested in you really moving towards is that once you have leaders identified and some differences that exist between them, I want you to move towards a situation where each particular leadership style will be best utilized. So I've already mentioned one example for authoritative leadership, i.e. helping people escape an emergency situation with a fire in a multiple-story apartment building. So take a moment and make that list, and I will come back online in just a moment and make some more comments. Okay, what I'd like to suggest that you do if you're working alone or with another person on this later is to actually share a bit of this list and to literally speak out loud to each other. And whether you phone each other or Skype or FaceTime or whatever, find a manner by which you can share this with another person as a way of solidifying your learning. Moving on to situational leadership. Situational leadership in that video that you've hopefully watched several times by now called 10 Leadership Theories in 5 Minutes. There is a very helpful four-word phrase that creator of that video came up with that describes situational leadership to a T. And he says this in that video: the leader should change. Again, the leader should change. So situational leadership is all about the leader's adaptability. It was developed initially in 1969 by two men by the name of Paul Hersey and Ken Blanchard, who hopefully you've seen a little bit of a video on as well already. A little clip by him on situational leadership. The main idea in this theory of leadership is that different situations demand, require, necessitate different types of leadership, different styles, as well as different leaders, frankly. But really different styles. And so the leader really needs to work on remaining adaptable and the leader really, sort of the adaptability of a leader is the highest skill necessary within this situational theory of leadership, because the leader needs to be adaptable for two reasons. Number one, the task that needs to be completed or done is almost limitless in what it needs. And then who you are doing that task with, i.e. your followers, you need to examine their capability and their desire and their willingness and their ability to complete whatever task is done. And so the leader sort of works within those parameters and develops their personal style of leadership to fit whatever the situation is at hand. So style here, don't get confused with the previous theory of leadership we just looked at here. But Blanchard and Hersey came up with 4 different leadership styles for this theory of leadership, and they call them directing, coaching, supporting, and delegating. And basically those work along the spectrum from directing to coaching to supporting to delegating that move from a spectrum of directive behavior that is very high, i.e. the leader does everything and commands in a very authoritative, clear manner, to low directive behavior, which is very hands-off for the leader. And then for the follower, towards the follower, the leader is either highly supportive, meaning very empowering, and also very hands-off in sort of letting the follower do the task at hand and figure out what the best approach is, as well as moving down a spectrum towards a much lower supportive behavior. And so you see that this leadership style, or that these leadership styles sort of exist within 4 quadrants. Directing is both highly directive, obviously, and yet has low supportive behavior. Coaching is highly directive and has highly supportive behavior. Supporting is highly supportive, obviously, but has low directive behavior. And then delegating is both low supportive behavior and low directive behavior. A man by the name of Nordhaus, who is one of the authorities in leadership theory and practice, basically literally wrote the textbook that the majority of universities worldwide use in this, lists the following 4 strengths towards this approach of leadership. And so basically what he says is this: he says this leadership theory is incredibly well known. He says it's frequently utilized all the time. We consider leadership and the type of leadership we need given a situation. He loves and advocates the practical approach, and that it has almost a limitless ability to be contextualized to a particular situation, culture, or need. He says that this leadership theory is very prescriptive in nature, meaning that it challenges the leader very deeply to move away from theory and words towards practice and action, which is really good for most leaders. And then lastly, as I've already said, it emphasizes leader adaptability and flexibility. He doesn't actually honestly have much of a negative perspective on what this leadership theory really struggles with, other than the measurement idea of how do you measure the development of followers and hold them accountable to growth. Again, given that leadership, the situational leadership theory is about the fact that leader changes, and that you don't necessarily change the leader, that's contingency theory. What we're going to do over the next few minutes is we're going to do an exercise or a learning lab that takes the title of this actual TUT, and that's basically how do you run a day spa? How do you manage a day spa? And so what I'd like you to do is to work alongside somebody. And I'm going to show you right now two little articles I'd like you to skim read within the resources folder, Keynote PDFs, under our Funda tab. And one of them about the sort of leadership style needed to manage a day spa successfully. The other is about different ideas about leadership style, more in general for the management of a retail store. Just to be clear, a day spa is a specific kind of retail store. And so both articles are going to be helpful. What we're going to do is you're going to take, probably not actually 20 minutes, probably a little shorter than that. And for the perspective of this broadcast, just pause and then come back. But you're going to take probably 10 minutes or so, and you're going to do what we call a mind map, which is both a visual and a verbal brainstorming. So literally you're writing down not only words, which most of us only brainstorm in, but pictures and symbols and ideas that kind of creatively help you think outside the box to figure out the following. You're figuring out who is the ideal leader for both of these enterprises. So for both of these businesses, what kind of manager will be the best manager possible for a day spa and for a retail store? Okay. You need to consider the style of the leader needed for this particular enterprise, this day spa. You need to consider the needs of the typical employee and customer base. So what sort of situational leadership do you need to consider as you do that? There's lots of things to think about, and what I want you to do is to make a mind map of this and to creatively imagine this leader. And then we'll move forward in just a moment, speaking about further things. Again, I have pulled up these articles out of Funda under the Resources tab, under a subfolder within the Resources section that is called Keynote PDFs. The first article is called What Type of Leadership Style is Required for a Spa? The second one is called The Impact of Leadership Style on a Retail Store. What I'd like you to do is to read this for just a moment, and I will slowly sort of scroll through this for those of you that need to access the student's broadcast, and then I'll make some comments about that in just a moment. Again, just to be clear, if you're watching this later, what we are doing is we are considering the case study or the test case of you being a manager of a day spa, which is a service-oriented business establishment, very popular and increasingly competitive in terms of the market. And what we are imagining is what sort of leadership style as well as situations would you need to be up to date in to successfully manage this particular business. And so I want you to create a mind map where you are thinking and dreaming of that together. I'm going to scroll through this article quickly now for the screen. So initially you see that the different styles that they speak about within this short article is the idea of participative style leadership or democratic, delegative style leadership, or laissez-faire, and the authoritative style leadership, all of which we have particularly talked about, as well as the obvious idea that a spa is business. Moving to the other article in brief, this one is much more general, and so I'm going to be quick here, but basically if you imagine that you were leading a retail store, again, of which a spa is a version of one, here are some of the important things to consider as you lead. Task direction, and people management, sorry, here it is. The impact of leadership style of a retail store. So task direction, people management, the idea of the risk that one's culture needs to think through, consideration of people, the key struggle of finding balance. And again, all of these I want you to think about in light of running a day spa, okay? And what you're coming up with is the ideal leader for a day spa. So again, I'll give you one more moment to sort of jot some ideas down, and then I'll say something about this and we'll move on. If you're watching this later, what I'd like you to do is to make sure that you've shared your ideas with somebody. But basically, whether you're talking about, sorry, let me change the screen share. Whether you're talking about a day spa or any other business, it's really important to combine the idea of style within leadership. So what sort of action and behavior you are taking, and you need to combine that or look at that through the lens of the situation or the need at hand. And if you don't do that, probably your style is not going to fit the people nor the situation at all, and it's just going to be a gigantic mess. And so this is a really important exercise to consider. I would challenge you to change day spa towards any sort of business, organization, or environment that you find yourself wanting to be a leader within, and to do the sort of same brainstorming, mind mapping exercise. You'd be amazed at how helpful that will be in coalescing your thoughts as to the sort of leader that is required of the particular thing you want to engage with. Okay, I'm going to switch gears here now unless there are any questions. So as I do switch gears, if there are any questions, please feel free to write them into the group chat or to unmute yourself and ask directly. Okay, you'll see that I have opened up your never-ending module outline, and that if you are watching this broadcast any point before 11:59 p.m. on October the 2nd, which is tomorrow or Thursday, my hope is that you will have already completed this quiz. If you have not, though, I'm going to take the last few minutes of our tutorial today to just walk anybody through it that may need a little extra help. If this is not something you need help in, as far as I'm concerned, you are free to stop watching this broadcast, and God bless you on this quiz. I hope you do really, really well. For those of you that need help, though, and are lost, what is your first assessment about? It's about reading in full Robert Coleman's text on the leadership principles found in the Methods and Ministry of Jesus. He wrote a book about 50 years ago called The Master Plan of Evangelism that is more or less the most influential book on the leadership of Jesus that has been written in the last 100 years or so. So it's something we need to consider for considering leadership theory and we're Christ followers. What you need to do is read through that PDF. It's about 44 pages. You can find it online for free without searching very hard. Just Google around for it a bit. I am unable to post it in full to our Funda site because of copyright issues, and yet you don't need to cheat or do anything nefarious to find it online. You are smart people, and I trust that you will do that. In it, Coleman describes 8 leadership principles that he believes that Jesus really sort of demonstrates and leads from. And the first thing you need to know for your quiz is you need to be familiar enough with those. You don't need to know them word for word or memorize actual definitions, but just understand them enough to be able to recognize them and fill in the blank matching sorts of questions, which the first section of your quiz is. Each one of the leadership principles will be tested. In addition, you will have a second section that will have about 5 questions that will be short answer, a couple sentences max. Each question that talks about different quotes pulled out of his work, and you apply leadership theory to that and discuss it. Again, if you're familiar enough with 8 leadership principles, I think you'll do okay in this section. And then section 3, or part 3 of the quiz, is the short answer essay portion. And in that, first 2 things I'm going to ask that you honestly don't use resources, that you value your integrity and your word, and that you don't use resources, but you do your best once you're ready to begin. The third section is different, and I want you to utilize as many resources as you can or have need of, and feel free to quote, etc. as you're doing that. What you're going to be looking at is the critical evaluation of the Bible's relationship to leadership and narrative theory, as shown in Coleman and through the scriptures. And so we talked about that, really the first TUT that we had together, and we're going to be returning to that one last time for you to now kind of integrate your own thought into that. I'm going to ask that you write a several paragraph, maybe 2 paragraphs or so, essay response to that. The interesting thing here, and I'll say more about this just now, is that before the end of your quiz, which is a time test of 75 minutes in total length, unless you work fast, you will need to make sure that you copy and paste your answer for that short answer essay into a separate document that you can then post onto Funda for the last portion of this assessment. And I'll explain why you want to do that in just a minute, but just know that you will need to do that. And then lastly, this quiz will be open until 11:55 on Thursday, October the 2nd. I'm going to mute myself for a moment and get up our Funda site and then show you directly kind of what to use from here on out. Okay, here's our Funda site, our homepage, and what I want you to first see is I want you to find out that I have, if you don't know this is scary to me, but some of you may not. First of all, I want you to know that under the resources folder, under the reading subfolder, there are 4, count them 4, different Coleman resources that you can choose from to help you self-study. 2 outlines and 2 summaries. This does not take the place of actually reading the book, which you also need to do, but know that there's plenty of material here to study from and become familiar with. that will help you solidify Coleman's ideas. That's under the Reading Resources tab. When you are done with that, and you are ready to take the quiz, what you need to do is you need to go to this section that is appropriately entitled Tests and Quizzes. And you click there, and you're going to see this open assessment, which has a time limit of 1 hour and 15 minutes, or 75 minutes, and is going to be due or will close automatically on you on October the 2nd. That's tomorrow, Thursday, at 11:59 p.m. When you are ready to take the quiz, I want you to put all of your resources away. Please, again, I value your integrity, and I hope you value mine, and I ask that you do this first 2 sections honestly, and you literally click this, and you begin the assessment. Follow the instructions very closely, particularly the bolded yellow highlighted text, and you should do fine. What you will need to make sure that you have is both a stable laptop and an internet connection and or tablet so that you are not interrupted, because you will lose your work then. Then you literally click begin the assessment. Again, section 1 and 2, please do not use your notes in. Section 1 is fill in the blank, section 2 is short answer. When you get to section 3, get out all your resources, work through that, make sure you're leaving yourself enough time, write the best couple paragraph essay that you can. And then what I need you to do is to copy and paste it and go to forums. And you'll see that, sorry, let me back out of this. Within the forum folder, there is a new topic that I've called Peer Evaluation Response to the Master Plan of Evangelism Short Answer Essay Question. You'll see that some people have already posted within that, which is wonderful. But you need to go within here, make up a new post. And as these people, lovely people, have already done, what you are going to do is not only post your essay there, you are then going to go to somebody else's post and you're going to respond to that. Now, how do you do a response? I don't need you to rip them apart and tell them they're a terrible writer or they don't understand how to read a book of English about evangelism, etc. What I'm looking for is thoughtful criticism that remains with the ideas. And so please make sure you do that and you find someone that has responded to somebody else's word. Please try to choose someone who has not already been responded to so you can be the sole person who responds to that. I'd like it to be one-on-one like that, but do your best with that. And then this is the last portion of your response. So going back to, sorry, I should open it again. Going back to the assessment details, you will see that a 250-word response dialoguing with another student's answer in a respectfully evaluative manner is what I'm asking you to have. Oh, sorry, it'd be helpful if I screen shared that. A 250-word response dialoguing with another student's answer in a respectfully evaluative manner. Post that in the response, as a response to someone's short answer essay post, and you have up until Friday to respond, okay? So over the next couple days, all of this is going to be due. Please email me or message me if you have specific questions. I will do my best to answer you and to be available as best as possible by a message or email over the next couple of days. I trust you and know that you're going to do amazing in this. God bless you. I hope this is a formative experience for you in your leadership and your worship of Jesus, and know that I think the best of you. Please take care, and God bless.